bu tavırlarımız dikkate alınmaz, ciddiye alınmaz.
If the Netherlands doesn't take our political sanctions seriously and take necessary steps to compensate for this crisis, Turkey will evaluate other options and impose additional sanctions. Turkey will also provide legal support to its citizens who were beaten up by the Dutch police. Until they make up for this incident and repair the damage, we will not allow diplomatic flights.
In a moment, we'll be getting the reaction from the Netherlands with our correspondent Simon McGregor-Wood. But first, let's go to Ankara with Andrew Hopkins. Andrew, can you tell us more about what these sanctions mean in practice?
Well, these sanctions that you just mentioned, the indefinite ban on the ambassador here in Ankara, the end to diplomatic flights and the suspension of high-level talks, they are purely diplomatic sanctions at the moment. There's no substantial economically adverse effects, if you like, attached to these, and nothing that will really affect the day-to-day life of people in the Netherlands or Turkey. The Dutch national carrier airline KLM, it's still operating between Turkey and the Netherlands, and also the embassy here, it's still being staffed, although the ambassador himself is not here. He was away on annual leave when this dispute actually happened, and now he's been told to stay away until Turkey is satisfied that this dispute is actually over.
All right, thank you very much for that, Andrew Hopkins. And now Simon McGregor-Wood is following the developments for us in The Hague, and he joins us now live. Simon, has there been any reaction to Turkey's latest moves?
Well, we've had that statement from Mark Routte, the Dutch Prime Minister, that you referred to in the introduction, calling the latest Turkish diplomatic response bizarre, but also saying that it wasn't as bad as it could have been, trying, I think, to take a slightly more moderate line on this. I think the Dutch are concerned about the possibility of further sanctions, but the ones announced so far, although they're serious, and give you a flavour of how intense this crisis is, they don't affect the economic relations between the two countries. They don't affect the rights of Dutch tourists to go to Turkey. So I think the view here is, to a certain extent, it's okay, it could have been worse. But they also feel, with so little time before this Dutch election starts on Wednesday, that they're not in a position to make any significant conciliatory gestures for as long as the language and the rhetoric on the Turkish side remains so difficult from the Dutch perspective. So I think it's a sense of relief that it's not too bad, but also the political necessity of not actually giving ground so far.
And as you mentioned, with just a day to go before the elections there, to what extent is this diplomatic crisis playing into campaigns?
Well, it has cast a shadow over the final few days of the campaign. As you know, Mark Routte, the Prime Minister, is trying to confront the main challenge in this election from Geert Wilders, the leader of the Dutch Freedom Party, this very right-wing, nationalist, anti-immigrant, anti-Islam, anti-EU populist politician who is doing extremely well in the polls. The latest polls, for example, have him and Mark Rutte's Liberal Party almost neck and neck ahead of the elections which start on Wednesday morning. And last night, the two of them faced off in a crucial televised debate, and of course how to handle this diplomatic crisis with Turkey came up as the two men fought it out on stage. Here's a flavour of what both had to say on it.
Well, the Turks are escalating it further. Yesterday, Mr. Erdogan repeated again on television that he thinks the Dutch are fascists, that he thinks the Dutch are Nazis. If you please, they want to take to court the heroes, our police agents, who cleaned up the square in the end because it had to be done. So I thought it's escalated already. And so, Mr. Routte, we shouldn't be standing around and say, we don't want to escalate it. We have to respond, at least expel immediately the Turkish ambassador and his staff. Otherwise, we accept that we are being offended, our police agents too.
This is the difference between tweeting from the sofa and governing the country. When you govern the country, you have to take wise decisions, and that isn't wise.
So a sense there of Geert Wilders, as you would imagine he would, trying to exploit this crisis for his own political ends. There has been some concern that the row would play into his hands and deliver more votes. And then Mark Routte, I think, trying to play the more moderate, calm and even-handed approach. And certainly in terms of the audience reaction, as you might have heard there, that appears to be the favoured response. In terms of the polling released this morning, I think most people, most Dutch voters, like the way Routte is handling it, a firm response to the Turkish on this issue, but there's no popular desire here, certainly, to escalate it further.